The movie is a broken promise.
The time and attention to detail that Ryan Coogler puts into establishing the environment, and I think environment, it goes without saying that it's essential, it's the identity to this film.
I mean, it was overwhelming. The sensory nature of this movie is to what I felt like was reaching for greatness.
The music is ingrained with the visuals. Like, I can't listen to the score without kind of seeing what was happening on the screen.
Like, this is building, and I cannot wait to see where it goes. But where does it go? So we all know sinning is bad, but what Sinners proposes is maybe it isn't. But it is, because this is the Catholic Film Club, and I'm Michael Coy, and I'm joined by my fellow producers, Patrick Bautista, and for the first time, Grant Stoner.
Yeah, welcome,
in front of the camera.
Good to be here.
Welcome.
I'm glad this was my entrance into the show, because this is just totally my area of expertise, my wheelhouse, because I'm a sinner. Wow. So I saw this coming out, and I thought, this movie's for me.
Really?
That's a wild coincidence, because I'm also a sinner. So yeah, that's wild.
Oh, that's a really amazing thing that you guys have in common.
It's really nice.
It's something.
And I think that type of synergy exists between us, because we happened to be at the same movie showing last night of Sinners, and we didn't even realize it.
That's true.
Yeah. And I saw him after the movie, and we were like, "Hey, we're both here for the same thing, both sinners."
Couple of sinners.
Yeah.
We watched over Easter break. How was your all's Easter?
It was very nice. It was very peaceful. It's like the fastest break that goes by for the year for me, and it's. But no, it's very nice. It's very peaceful. It's good to see family.
Any highlights from the season, Grant?
Easter was good. Love the Tritone, love the masses, and then also getting back and watching WrestleMania nights 1 and 2, Saturday and Sunday, which is beautiful, right up there with just best Easters of all time.
I found out from so I was at my in-laws, so it's a good Catholic family. Patriarch, Grandpa Jim, big fan of the Divine Mercy, so we've been playing that chaplet. But I also found out that Grandma Joyce-in-law, I don't know how I'm related to you exactly, Grandma Joyce, but it was really cool to find out that you had personally met Blessed James Miller, Father James Miller, who was assassinated in Guatemala and martyred in 1982. Wow. So that was a really cool.
That's a casual flex, Grandma Joyce.
Among us. We were going to talk about Carlo Acutis today too, because when this episode comes out, he was supposed to have been canonized, but of course, the big news: Pope Francis passed away.
Right.
Yeah. So of course, we'll pray for the repose of his soul, and that we get that we're blessed with another great Holy Father. So, actually, I think that I think me and Tom Hoops are going to do we're going to watch some of his favorite movies.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah. Because he had good taste.
Has really solid movies up there. Yeah, like Life is Beautiful, I think, is one of them.
Well, La Strada by Federico Fellini was one.
He's a Fellini guy.
I watched that because when he was first elevated to Pope, I watched that because I heard that he was a movie fan, and and it's a really beautiful movie. Awesome. But also Rome Open City and Babette's Feast, which I've never seen, but is kind of huge in Catholic communities. Have you guys seen that?
Babette's Feast a long time ago with my family, and I didn't enjoy it at all. I don't even think I finished it.
Sorry, Pope Francis.
Yeah, come after me.
Well, that's why you're not on that show.
That's true. It's true.
I mean, transition right into Sinners, because I have a lot to say about it. What's our okay? I'm going to go down the list. Headline from both of you, because what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the first half, because I think it's a movie of two halves. We're going to talk about it right up until a certain person bites the dust, so to speak, and then we'll get into that side of the movie. But what's the headline thought from you, Grant?
I'm going to headline the first half, and I'm going to say, it went the opposite of where I thought it was going to go at so many points. Where I thought it was going to fall into a stereotypical, Deep South setting, or stereotypical action gangster, and it just kind of always veered a little bit from where I thought it was going to go. And I love that feeling in a movie where I'm like, oh, this is a wild ride. It could go anywhere. And so I enjoyed that in that first half for sure.
Yeah, I found it really surprised me, especially in that first half. I was not expecting. It seemed very like alive to me. Even just building up before like kind of everything goes down, so to speak. Like it was not. It always veered left when I thought it was going to go right. Totally. But what's your kind of initial thought, Patrick?
Well, my tagline or log line, I forget which one it is all the time. My log line for this movie is, if Jordan Peele directed a period piece, Project X. And for context, Project X, I haven't seen it, but it's a movie about a bunch of teenagers throwing a big party. And essentially, the first half of the movie
I thought you were talking about the Project X where Matthew Broderick raises a monkey.
I haven't heard of that one, so thank you for establishing that there's two different Project X's here. But to boil it down, the first half of the movie is these two brothers come back to their hometown in Mississippi after 6 or 7 years, and they want to open a juke
joint. Club Juke.
Club Juke. But they want to throw a party for the opening night, and the first half is essentially just them getting back and getting supplies and people and resources together to throw a big fun party, and that's kind of it. And I'm there for it, for the simplicity of it. I like that it's essentially just a 24-hour period that the movie takes place in. To both of your guys' points, the time and attention to detail that Ryan Coogler puts into establishing the environment, and I think environment, it goes without saying that it's essential. It's the identity to this film. There's attention to like background actors, to the sets, the production design, the way he moves the camera and the cinematography. There's time for long tracking shots, but they're not for the sake of a tracking shot. They're to reveal more of the town, to reveal how the flow and the physics of the town exist. And to me, when you're blending, horror film and horror elements with this period piece aspect of old Jim Crow South that has, in my opinion, not really been captured so realistically like this, you want it to be believable, especially when you're throwing in the supernatural elements that we're going to get into later. You want it to be believable. And to me, every single character felt like came alive when I saw them. I was like, I believe, as goofy as Smoke and Stack are, I believe that they're real. And I think that's an underrated and underappreciated thing.
So which one, so are you guys, I'll just put a question you guys asked. Team Smoke, Team Stack?
Well,
we're
going with the red and blue little motif here.
Yeah, I guess I'm Team Stack.
I guess I'm Smoke. And no,
I'm Team Vampire.
Team Vampire? How dare you? Okay, do you think? Okay, who was named Smoke? Who took it first? Because it's like when you're like, hey, I'm gonna be nicknamed Smoke. You don't want to be the guy who's like, oh, I guess I'll be Stack.
Yeah, you don't want to be Stack.
The older brother.
Because I really don't think that Stack chose his name first, and Smoke was like, hey, hold on a second, Smokestack?
Right.
We're getting into one of my nitpicks with the movie, so maybe we should put pause on this conversation.
What you were talking about, though, about just the detail, I find it's very easy to wax poetic about the first half of this movie, because I am totally in agreement with you. There is what surprised me was how detailed it was, and how deliberate it was at setting up characters, at setting up environment, at building to what ultimately for me became the climax at the middle of the movie. And like, to get out of my thoughts, I would give this movie many Oscar nominations. Really? But I would say writing, I don't think so, because for me, just the second half, and it's not really about the vampires. I thought it abandoned everything that you're talking about. Deliberate build, detail, I've character development. To me, it just threw it all out the window, and I honestly don't know why. But I mean, do you guys know what I'm talking about without getting too far into it? Like,
yeah, I felt like we had delineated. I felt like the characters had purpose, and they're all unique, and they all had this thing going in, and then there's this turn, and all of a sudden, it's not about what it seemed to be about the whole first half. It seemed to be about kind of something different than.
I mean, I guess I don't know.
It felt very cheap and gimmicky, I think, and we'll get into the specifics of this turn later. But the beauty of this movie is the setting mixed with this really well designed, eerie build of horror, like how we said, there's nothing extremely unusual that happens until 45 or an hour into the movie. And by that point, we know something's going to happen, and we're just like, we're excited to see what's going to happen because we feel trusted in this director to execute the story well. Yeah. And with horror, payoffs are a big thing. So the coolest part of horror, and I'm not, as we've established on the show, I'm not the biggest horror part, but the thing I find fascinating is the peek behind the curtain moment and the revelations or the things that are unknown by the end of the movie. And I think it was really like poorly played out in the act like 2.5 to 3 in a way that left me feeling very empty and just wishing that it was executed in a different way.
Totally. Yeah, I think there's a word just in you describing that first half as eerie that was so strong to where even though you didn't like the movie later on establishes the supernatural things, but there is an eeriness. There's like a unsettled. There's something looming. You can just kind of feel it, and that's so strong. I think from the pastor's conversation with his son Sammy of like the presence of spiritual sides and different aspects to it. That's like, okay, there's something happening in this area.
Yeah, I wouldn't say, because I mean, I don't want people to mistake like that I am against there being vampires in this movie. I think the movie that I was watching, I thought it was establishing that there is kind of a supernatural connection to our world, and I thought that was very well set up, and it didn't seem out of nowhere to me. A big inspiration for this movie was From Dusk Till Dawn, the Quentin Tarantino Rodriguez movie, which is famous for having this same break of you think you're watching a road movie, a crime movie, and then it veers hard and fast into vampires. Yeah. That one, it veers like, it is just like a left turn.
All of a sudden, yeah.
And
I gotta see that one.
I think both movies that are pretty good, but it is almost two different movies. For me, I felt like the turn from like the first half to the second half is kind of sounds cool on paper, but I felt kind of disappointed. I felt a little let down because what I thought I was seeing was a Ryan Coogler who up until now has only been part of a franchise. Like, he's only been part of franchises. This is his first original movie. I mean, this is something we've been talking about in the office of just like, when is there going to be a big budget original movie? Because they made them so often in the 80s and 90s. And even if they were part of a genre, it's like they were still their own thing. And so I'm seeing him like reach for greatness. Like right from the outset, that scene you're describing, Grant, where Preacher Boy, who's kind of the blues musician at the center of this story, inspired by Tommy Johnson and Robert Johnson, these blues musicians who supposedly sold their souls to the devil, and yet kind of codified what we think about the blues and push things into the new stratosphere of music. At the beginning, he has this like, it's a flash forward to when he comes to see his dad at the middle of I'm assuming like a Baptist church service, and the dad asks, "Will you renounce God?" And I think we can get into his answer, or will you renounce Satan?
Yes.
And I think we will get into his answer later on when we talk about what comes before. But it's really, I don't know. I felt betrayed. I'm kind of losing my train of thought here. But.
Right, but it also the cool thing about that, to run it back real quick, is the slow build comes out like right from the get-go very strong, as in you basically see the end of the movie at the very beginning, and you see just something crazy just happened. This man is less of a man than he normally is, and we want to know why. And we're expecting something really fascinating to happen, hence the slow build. So it just builds and builds and builds and builds, and then however the chart goes from that point is up to the director. But there's a payoff that I think is owed when you're making a movie like this, and I don't know if promises is the right word to say from a story aspect, but there's things that I think, can make or break a good story, and payoffs and that peek behind the curtain moment is one of those things that makes or breaks a good horror film. And, a lot of people have talked about Get Out in relation to this movie because, Ryan Coogler and Jordan Peele are close, and you're talking about two African-American directors, making these horror genre defying movies. And I think what Get Out does really well is has that eeriness, sets up the movie, sets up the build, and then, in my opinion, people may disagree, but just pays it off so well and so neat. So it's an achievable thing. Yeah. We're not asking for anything crazy. And maybe speculating here that Ryan Coogler bit off more than he could chew when bringing in vampires. One of the disappointing things for me is the fact that religion and the sinners of this movie and sin as a theme is not sufficiently explored. If you're going to have it in the title, and if you're going to allude to it on so many levels, I would hope, and I know Ryan Coogler can do this, so that's why it's disappointing. Like, the man knows how to get into themes in movies. He knows how to explore real root aspects to our human nature. And you're calling a movie Sinners, and there's sin and debauchery and vampires, but there's nothing at the end for me that feels sufficient material to feel like we really grappled and unpacked something here,
There's a conflict with the devil. I mean, it seems almost the literal devil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like that main vampire is almost, and I think for a movie called Sinners, I would assume, they have a group of characters in mind who are the sinners. But I think at the end of it, I was like, was it the people in the juke joint? Was it the vampires were the sinner?
Or is there a perspective coming up? Because, and I don't think this is just because we're like trying to be pious Catholics. I mean, we didn't call the movie Sinners. We didn't open the movie with a blues musician walking in on his father, giving a Baptist sermon. And asking him if he will renounce the devil.
Yeah, they brought it all.
They brought it all up,
right?
And as far as I can tell,
we're here for the show.
Exactly. We're here for the show. Yeah. And nothing is resolved. So I want to bring us up to that moment where, in my opinion, it just kind of threw everything aside. But I don't know. It has to be said. The music and the cinematography are just insane. Awesome. I mean, Patrick is a cinematographer. Can you tell us about you were doing a lot of research on the IMAX aspect of this?
I think at this point everyone's seen that one video of Ryan Coogler explaining different aspect ratios.
So adorable with the
you love to see a guy
the chart
so unpretentiously explain something that can be inherently pretentious, but he. I love Ryan Coogler for the way that he engages in the art form and how he's just not shooting something on film and, the largest format film possible just for any particular reason. He's like, no, well, this is an immersive experience. We created this world that we want you guys to quite literally enter in the most real way possible. And IMAX, as we've seen from namely Christopher Nolan films, really brings that to you and makes you feel like you're in that cockpit in Dunkirk and you're in the spaceship in Interstellar. And when executed well, it works so perfectly. And, there's not much else that can come close to that type of experience. And in Sinners, it's no different. You feel like you're walking through those cotton fields. You feel like you're in the car with Smokestack and Preacher Boy, and it's visceral to be a part of that. And moving on to the sound and the sound design, the music, that's such an essential plot to this.
I mean, those shots of them driving through the cotton fields, which there are many because they're going back and forth, are just I can't erase those from my mind. I mean, there's something so beautiful and textural about the way that it's rendered. Apparently the wider you go, the bigger format you go, the more shallow the depth of field is, and you can tell. I mean,
Oh yeah.
It's it's like they're surrounded by, it's like they're living in a painting, like they're walking through a painting. It was overwhelming. The sensory nature of this movie is to what I felt like was reaching for greatness. But yeah, the music is also another huge part of it. Grant, can you talk about the music?
Oh, just so intentional. I feel like the really great composer right now, it's Ludwig Göransson, right?
Yeah.
Who's just, the music is ingrained with the visuals. Like I can't listen to the score without kind of seeing what was happening on the screen. There's a part where the character Annie is like trying to light a match, and there's like music notes that are like ba-bum, ba-bum, because she fails, and then it lights, and it's like ba-bum, ba-bum, and it's like, that's how the music is what's happening, right? And it's just so intentional.
Do you guys play music? I don't.
I grew up playing piano, and I know how to read sheet music, but that's about it. I don't want to.
Okay.
I can do Smoke on the Water on a bass guitar.
Nice.
So
we'll have to crack that out next after the show. But
incredible music.
And it seems to be just baked into everything the movie's about. You know? So
we can get. I want to bring that up in spoilers again too, in a part where it's not baked in. I think it should have been. But yes, I mean the stomping and it's just a feeling. It's the sound design and it's the music all happening at once. And it just
that was surprising to me. I did not expect that to be so much a part of the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is like it lives and breathes within everything that's happening.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is like. It is one of the best scores I've heard in many years, personally.
I think for me, it's not one of the best, but it's one of the most genuine, insofar that there's nothing quite like the Sinners soundtrack out there. And for a composer, that for a lot of movies, you just need to do a good enough job. And Ludwig is a different beast. The man is like acclaimed beyond belief. So we're talking something different. But for someone to just really reach for greatness here, and just reach for something that doesn't really exist, and to just deliver it so well is really what I think artistry is really about, is just being daring. And I think Ludwig was extremely daring in material that I don't think he's ever really tackled the blues this way before.
Yeah, not on the big screen. He's mostly known. I know him from the Oppenheimer score. I don't know other ones.
Well,
necessarily.
He is a USC grad. He was a fellow classmate with Ryan Coogler. They graduated together. Ludwig has scored all of Ryan Coogler's films, from Fruitvale to all the Black Panthers.
Oh, fascinating!
No kidding.
I'll have to take a listen to the Creed score again.
That's awesome.
And Creed,
Okay, that's really cool. So, but you're talking about like this daring, and there's a scene in the movie that is so daring and so much about music. So
it's that type of scene that could make people walk out of the theater for how out there it is.
Yeah, because it takes a huge risk, which is, and so before the opening credits happen, there's this voiceover that establishes that there are some people like Preacher Boy who like when there's a chord that they strike or something, where just like they have the gift to basically awaken the spirits, which is, how it's justified that a vampire has been like brought out of existence from this music, or at least woken up and come to the Delta. But it is an unbroken shot where Preacher Boy starts this song and then begins this like riff, and suddenly there's a guy with an electric guitar who enters frame. And suddenly but then there's also like
a ballet dancer,
bongo drums, and
African like tribal music, and a guy with like on the a guy on the turnstiles.
That part made me laugh. I was like, okay, we're going there.
It could be laughably bad.
Yes.
It risks being bad.
It does. And I'm sitting there, and I love the kind of things where if you go there, I will be with you. If you're a filmmaker,
absolutely.
I'm 100%. If you like, please take it there. And so I was sitting there, and as that scene starts, I'm like, I hope they like really go there, because there's that voiceover, and I'm like, okay, well, he can bring some spirits back, but you can easily play that so safe as a filmmaker. And when that electric guitar chord starts, and there's this like Prince-esque looking dude from the future, I'm like, I just started grinning. Like, I was like, this is film, like this is movies, this is, you can do that in movies. And
it felt
awesome.
very Birdman-esque, where there's that surreal dream sequence where like the superheroes show up and they're all fighting each other. And it felt very much like that.
Yeah. But it also seemed to be like, if there was a thesis statement on the movie or like a statement of what the movie is about, I wouldn't say, at that point I would tell you, well, it's not really about morality. It's not really about saints versus sinners. It's about that music connects everything, that there is this transcendent art that will reach to a truth that we can't access without it. And you could convince me of that. But then like it kind of builds to this fever pitch. Now it's set up as by Preacher Boy, this song is like a rebuke of his father. Mm-hmm. The lyrics of it are that he lied to his dad and that he does still love the blues. I guess he loves the blues more than God. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's interesting because I was doing some research into, because we all know kind of vaguely what that is, of like the blues is like the devil music. And it's like, why is it the devil music? And apparently it's because it invokes the tritone. This is me and not a musicologist or anything. I'm just repeating things I saw on, in fact, I'll just link to this YouTube video I'm riffing on. But he was talking about something really cool where it comes from the tritone, which was supposed to be, there was a rumor that it was banned by the Catholic Church actually, but it turns out that that's not the case. That's been debunked. It's just that it had this name called the devil in music because it like invoked one that was very, very difficult to achieve, especially in song, because it just kind of strikes it's a strange chord basically, and the blues kind of lives on that chord and never resolves it, which is apparently you have to, like in classical music, if it was used, which plenty of Catholic composers did use it, and like in Gregorian chant as well, they would use it, but it would be resolved in like a
more normal
a chord that is more pleasing to the ear. But blues just doesn't do that. So I think maybe that's how that got started. I still don't, but these things are in play in the movie. I mean, like I said, Preacher Boy is directly inspired by that musician Tommy Johnson, who supposedly sold his soul to the devil. In No Brother Where Art Thou, that character shows up. And so, but me, I'm watching it and I'm just like this is building and I cannot wait to see where it goes. Mm-hmm. But where does it go? So
I don't know where to start.
Well,
yeah, Grant.
I guess it goes. So the vampires show up. To the dance.
The lead vampire is recruited to two people, and they show up to the dance. Yeah. And that sort of conflict begins.
Yeah.
How would you describe the way that the vampires interact with each other?
It's very similar, right? I mean, they have the same goals, once they're become vampires.
It's
they're
a pretty,
all on a team,
pretty like hive mentality, I would say, once they're all united together.
It did seem like they were like, the lead vampire was almost puppeteering everyone around him.
He definitely had a higher...
With song, I might add.
That's
true.
With
Down the Rocky Road to Dublin.
Oh, God.
While Jack O'Connell does Irish dance, which we confirmed that he did actually do that dancing, double. Which well done.
He learned the dance.
Well done, Jack O'Connell.
I mean, can't every Irishman dance? That's kind of
I can.
Like, your name's O'Connell, I mean.
Yeah. You should be able to.
But that's a really cool part of it too, that he seems to, and when he starts turning more and more people, they seem to like, again, build into this this kind of musical fever pitch, which is really cool. But okay, so this is the spoiler conversation where we get into what happens once the vampires start. Okay, so Patrick, bring us up to speed to like the inciting incident.
So the three vampires show up to the party and try and get in, and it's as we find out, they ask to enter because they are not allowed to enter that barn unless they're invited in, and is traditional vampire lore from Dracula and Nosferatu and other things.
Oh yeah, way beyond. Yeah. It's just like you have to invite them in, and that's just part of the lore. So hence, like, Let the Right One In, that Swedish movie.
So they get denied, and then Haley Steinfeld's character walks out because they have money. They have real money, not plantation money, and she knows that Smoke and Stack need real money, so she goes out, tries to bring them back in, doesn't realize that that's exactly what they want her to do, and then she walks away after finding out that they're, not quite as human as they appear. And then this is one of the parts that really made me laugh, and I don't think I was supposed to, but Jack O'Connell, he flies. Yeah. And I was like, oh, so they can fly now. It felt like a Marvel moment where I was like, oh, like they can do that now. And that was a little ridiculous, but Haley Steinfeld, now infected, gets back into the party, and she's a vampire in there, but no one can tell because, there's a bite mark, but that's hidden as far as we can tell. And then she ends up biting and killing Stack in a private room, and Smoke shows up, sees her biting his neck off, and shoots her a bunch of times. She turns around, laughs, says, like, we're gonna kill all of you.
Yeah, we're gonna kill every single last one.
Runs out. It's now it's been established that, okay, well, something's going down, something's not right, someone's dead.
Yeah.
Like, things are about to go down.
And at that point, Delta Slim, the piano player, tells everyone to go home. And I was just like, no, don't do that.
Yes.
Why are you doing that?
There's a few examples of this is what I hate about, well, I don't hate, but this is a common problem with horror films, is especially with the slasher films, is don't go into the strange house. You have protagonists doing really dumb and unrealistic things that purposely put themselves into danger for the advancement of the plot. Yeah. And that seemed like one of those things where it was like, well, you're safe in the barn and you know that there's danger outside. Why would you send everyone outside even though their cars are safe? Like, keep them inside until you can figure out what's going on. For
their sake and for your sake if things go down. Like, you've got more bodies around you. What is this? That decision makes no sense. To me, it takes everything where this could have been like huge, like vampires versus, like sinners, basically, the people in this juke joints, basically. And I just felt like by doing that and whittling it down to the main players, it took what was like this huge grand thing and took all the air out of it and made it into your standard vampire siege movie that I've seen like many times before. But okay, Grant, are you hearing what we're saying, or like did it kind of sever that for you, or were you still in at that point?
Yeah, that wasn't the point for me. I definitely think was in it until the vampires got in and why they got in. That was what severed it for me. I kind of understood. Yeah, I kind of understood sending them home because they still didn't understand it yet. They still didn't know. Okay, hey, party's over. We got somebody dead in here. Clear it out. We can't, because they're like, hey, we want money, but hey, play music, hey, da. And so you just get out of here. I didn't think of all of that when that happened, but I mean, I guess just to move on, they all go, they get infected, including the
doorman.
The doorman, right? He's infected. Cornbread.
Yeah, cornbread.
And then the shop owner husband gets infected, and that's what kind of then starts. But the wife doesn't. Yeah. So she's still inside.
Now, here's the thing about this. I felt like, we're talking about this first half of the movie is so deliberate and everything is set up and like the way that people interact, like people have different rules and they're working with each other on that.
Yeah.
This one, I feel like you could just breeze by the plot in like 2 minutes.
This
part of the story. Yeah.
Yeah. The vampires.
There's vampires
get in and they fight them
and
it turned into, it turned into like a Marvelized action movie from that point forward, where I was like, oh, so we're having the action sequence, and it's just, that was the part where it really, I think I lost hope, or Grace opens the door and says, come on in, which is like she's fueled by emotion.
I mean, and like to get us there, before that, like to me, it's just very suddenly we're just like diving really deep into just outlining cliches, frankly, like, and things that where I'm just like, wait, how does this work? So all of a sudden, the witch doctor, she knows like, okay, so here's what we do to get rid of vampires. Got to get some garlic, okay? Get some garlic and get some holy water, and
wooden spikes.
got to get some wooden stakes, and it's like, you know, if you keep the story going, then maybe that's cool. But it's, to me, I'm just like, okay, the wooden stakes. You're a voodoo. You're a witch doctor. What do you have? Do you have holy water? Mm-hmm. What does holy water even mean to you? Like this. I don't know if you know what holy water is, but it's like it's a sacrament of the Catholic Church. Like I don't like, or it's it's sacramental of the Catholic Church. Like I don't understand what that has to do with voodoo. Like
I can't.
Suddenly all the rules are out the any rules are out the window, and it's just like cliches.
I don't know any witch doctors personally, but I would be really surprised if they acknowledge the genuineness and power of holy water within their religion.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I'm just like I'm not saying it has to be Catholic. I'm just saying like there's got to be like a voodoo approach to vampires. Like if you're gonna lean into the authenticity, to me, it's just like, I don't know.
The other thing too, which is one of my letdowns, is that we established that Annie is a witch doctor, and that builds to this supernatural akin world to this normal Jim Crow Mississippi South. From that point forward, though, she doesn't really do anything with her witch doctor-ness. Once things start happening, she kind of just acknowledges that it's not really real, and then brings in, you know, a real sacramental of holy water, and then the typical weapons of self-defense against vampires. And it's like, well, okay, so that doesn't really matter anymore. It doesn't come back in. Yeah.
And then they're hitting that you have to let them in thing over and over. And it's like, you didn't learn the second time? They have two long, drawn out conversations. One with Cornbread, the doorman, who's obviously a vampire at this point, and one with Grace's husband. And it's like, guys, obviously, like, we got it.
He's beating us over the head.
We got it. Right. And like, I don't know, and the payoff is just not there. You were going to say something though, Grant.
Oh yeah, well, just like the witch doctor-ness, and it's okay, that's how she knows how to fight him. So they gear up, they do the stereotypical cliche from like The Thing, where it's like, we got to prove you're not one of them. So we all circle around and do this thing to make sure you're not one of them. Yeah. And you're like, okay, like we as an audience, I feel like I definitely knew none of them were, because we've seen that they've been on screen the whole time.
It's true.
So if they never got away to be one of them. And then, okay, we're going to gear up and get all the stuff we need. And then as soon as those doors open, it's just guns.
It's just guns. And it's also now you're talking about 6 people versus like 50 vampires. And somehow
the numbers didn't quite add up.
Yeah, somehow like only a couple of the main characters get taken apart. Anyway, at that point, I'm just like, up until that point, especially with the like I said, it's not about the vampires. Up until that fever pitch of like all the music of the world and time coming together, I was like, I have no idea where this movie's going, and I love it. After that, I was like, everything. I know everything that's going to happen.
I have a mini rant here.
Okay.
So what makes this movie great with the setup is, you know, it's a horror film, but specifically it's Lovecraftian horror, which Jordan Peele utilizes. And Lovecraftian horror, there's a lot of aspects to it, but it's this type of story or character or world where there's heavy emphasis on the unknown. There's heavy emphasis on normal human beings thrown in really extreme situations, but facing this just crazy entity that they've never experienced before. And isolation, like deep isolation, is part of Lovecraftian horror. And, you know, you have these really mythical creatures to it, but what lies in the shadows is the power of Lovecraftian horror. And that's what Peele does well, is where he throws in little dashes of eeriness, just to tell you, like, hey, something's going on here. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but there's something going on here. And that's why it works well with Get Out and with Us. And, you know, you can debate, nope, for another time. But it's Lovecraftian horror is the insignificance of man in face of like insurmountable malevolent entities. And that's why I was excited for this, because I know, Coogler's relationship with Peel, and from the trailer and promotional content, I felt like we were going here. And I knew there were vampires, so I was like, okay, well, I know that's part of it. But the isolation part is something that I want to, highlight, because with the vampires unable to enter this barn, you have that isolation factor. Like, that's physically part of the story, where the vampires can't get in, so our characters are safe, but at the same time, they're isolated. And the part that broke that all apart for me, or completely dissolved the mystic of this horror, is when the characters get face to face with each other and they can't enter, but they're having a normal conversation like the three of us are, and it completely dissolved everything because it's all in front of you. It's all being revealed in over explanation right now. So not only is the story force feeding, the behind the curtain moment down your throat, so as an audience we feel let down, so we weren't able to discover it, they just told us. Right. Secondly, this whole threat of you don't know who's a vampire, which they didn't even really lean into that much, and you have a creature who can fly. You have a creature who's a 600-year-old vampire, who's smart, who's from a different continent. How did he get there? But then it comes down to a face-to-face conversation where they're right next to each other. The only barriers that they're, for whatever reason, not allowed to get in. And it just completely left me disappointed, because now there's nothing to discover. And the discovery itself is also a huge letdown. So for me, that was the point where I just really felt like we got abandoned and we got left behind. And there were just scraps. That was what remained in Act 3. And that's a harsh take, I realize, saying out loud, but that's thoughts.
That's really well put. Did you feel that way, Grant?
Similar. I think the discovery, it's like once okay, all the cards are on the table, it's just a matter of where they're going to go. There's a little less or a little less intrigue going on. As far as the climax and everything, and the final battle of Ramek, the Irish 600-year-old vampire, and Sammy, the preacher boy musician, I mean, I thought the final thing was going to be, because I think the two musical moments that stood out the absolute most that I'll remember whenever I think of this movie are obviously Sammy playing the guitar and bringing all these spirits around, and all these different, mixing turntables with African drums and all this stuff. And then I was entranced. I mean, I thought the Irish Rocky Road to Dublin was just so, it has kind of that eerie, folky feel, but it's entrancing. I felt so drawn to it.
Yeah, that's the scene where Ramek has everyone who was in the club is now a vampire, and they're all singing and dancing to Rocky Road to Dublin.
And I found that so interesting. It's like, okay, we have these two musical driven figures who are obviously going to come to a head at some point. So I was like, well, I think this is going to end as some cool musical, like, not rap battle, but like it's like my power of music, like, versus your power of music, in a way. And it just wasn't that. It was actually like the least interesting final moment, where he just kind of hits him with the guitar, and the guitar is made of silver, so it burns.
He doesn't even use that broken part of the. He doesn't even use the broken part of the guitar as a stake. I was like,
oh, he's going to use it as a stake. Yeah, no, he just walks home. It's what?
To that point where you're talking about, couldn't this have ended in a musical pitch? I think that's what was promising. Yeah. Let's talk about two things that are two Chekhov's guns that are just left on the table or delayed. One, it's established pretty early on that Smoketstack probably got all their booze from the Chicago mafia. Yeah. That they pitted against each other.
The Irish and the Italian.
Mobs. Where are they? They never show up. It's established, slightly early on that it's like, okay, just before things go down, that like, oh, we were kind of duped by this guy selling us this juke joint, this barn, because one, the money that, like, most of these people are paid not in money anymore, they're paid in like wooden
plantation
tokens,
Yeah.
which, bad businessmen, I would say get a lay of the land before you establish your business and hand over all this cash.
Yeah.
But also, the lead vampire Ramek says, you know what? I mean, this was a killing floor, and this was a trap for you guys set by the clan. They're going to come and kill you. For some reason, the clan doesn't show up until after all the vampire stuff is resolved. In the morning, I don't know what was their plan, just to kill Smokestack. Sounded to me like they were trying to kill everyone in that juke joint.
Yeah, they were showing up after the party.
Look, I know that like the party like goes on, of course, but I mean, the timing
late morning, it felt
doesn't
like,
make any sense as far as, and why aren't we having all of these forces coming together? And why aren't we seeing that in some sort of epic thing? I want to hear what the vampire does with the Italian music and the more Irish music and whatever clan members listen to. I don't know. Just sort of snapping fingers or something like that.
Angrily,
right? So
and a third Chekhov's gun, the Choctaw vampire hunters. I'm like, if we could have seen the clan vampires.
Oh my gosh, I forgot.
The Choctaw Nation. All collapsing into one big musical battle, guns, fight. I mean, it would have been...
The movie is a broken promise.
It is.
Yeah, I would say,
it's a broken promise. Just like, as a segue, another huge element, which isn't a Chekhov's gun, but it's a theme that I felt like was one of the most profound aspects to this movie that, you pick and choose what types of things you want to explore. So a lot was left off the table. So I'm not faulting the movie just on this. But the aspect of fatherhood was alluded to several ways with Smoke's relationship with his ex-wife and his infant daughter who passed away, to which I don't think we know why, right?
No.
I'm sure it was
just illness, probably.
Back in the day.
Illness, yeah. But, he's clearly groping with trauma about that, about, I don't know, maybe being in not a solid enough father figure, and with Stack with his, dalliances around the town and around the world, and clearly like not feeling called to that, and other father figures in this, and especially at the end when Smoke is dying, he sees his wife in this
an angelic figure of his wife.
Angelic figure, almost like as he's about to pass into the afterlife with his daughter.
Yeah.
And that was something where I just felt, well, sure, this is profound and this is saying something, but what is it saying? I don't know.
Well, then that point is undercut in actually a very Marvel movie kind of way by him like comically shooting up the clan members on the ground. He's like, let me reach for my infant baby from heaven. Bang, 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 bang. Oh, let me go back there. And it's like,
I think,
that to me, like the movie surrenders any point of view. I don't see any point of view from this movie.
And especially because, thinking about that first half where, it's veering. It's kind of taking angles I wasn't expecting.
It's very novelistic.
Totally. And it's a world, and it's cool. And there are rules to things, it feels like. And then, like, when he shot up the clan member, the leader of the clan that attacked them, I was like, he's not going to be, like, allowed to enter the afterlife or enter heaven now or something. Like, there's going to be some... And then, no, he just gets whatever he wants after kind of being,
That's the problem with this. Every character stays the same and gets everything that they want.
Just about, yeah.
Pretty much. And
I feel like there's aspects to their nature that Smoke discovers mainly, especially with when his brother Stack turns, he tells him all these sorts of things of like, this was we're not on the same wavelength that we're kind of expected to be. I feel different about certain things than you do, and that affects the previously unaffected Smoke on a more deep level. But we'll talk about Preacher Boy. Like, now this revelation, we return to that opening scene, and there's this conflict between his dad and his dad's religiosity and his like love of the blues music, and the dad's like, will you renounce Satan, basically, or to that effect. And what it does is it just says he drove away and he chose music. And I'm just like, that's not a resolution. You can play you can play this amazing score over that moment. It's not a resolution to me. You've just stared the devil in the face, and this is the decision that you're making.
You're not going to change at all.
You're not going to try to even reconcile them. It's you know, like we saw a whole movie recently, Wildcat last year, about the Flannery O'Connor story. And that whole movie's about reckoning like my art, which seems like evil, versus like what God wants. Like that's a real conflict. This movie just throws conflict out the window, I think, and just
like even worse, it suggests to the audience that they're going to address it, and then they don't. And I thought one of the cool things that I was hoping from the opening scene being in a church was the aspect of the all too familiar overbearingness of church on history and on location with, growing up. I'm sure we can all relate is, our experiences with our families going to particular churches or belonging to certain religions. It's baked into your childhood. So you grow up just automatically doing these things. And I'm sure Preacher Boy, as the Preacher Boy, grew up, and he mentioned, my name's Sammy, I go by Preacher Boy. He has an identity aspect to himself directly linked to his father, who represents church or religion or spirituality or whatever you want to call it. And at the end, we're left with this, okay, well, what's the decision going to be? And we're left completely unresolved. Yeah. And we don't even really know what he said. We don't know as an audience what the debate is. Are we supposed to see this as music versus religion? Are we supposed to see this as like music represents sin, or sin is like the church?
It's impossible to tell.
Comment section, help us out here.
Yeah,
but there's a lot. There's almost too much, and you don't even know where. I feel upset because I love having the conversation, but I don't really know exactly what the conversation is to be had.
Yeah.
And
then there's another ending.
Oh,
then it kind of ends.
Always is.
And now another thing that Coogler takes from the Marvel sphere. Then it kind of cuts to credits with like Preacher Boy's grown up to be this like cool blues musician with vampire scars on his face, and he's just sort of in there in a club in 1992. Apparently, this is like a famous blues musician living today, but I don't remember what his name is. But he's like a legit guy. Yeah. Anyway, credits roll. So everyone in my theater gets out the window, gets out the door, and then what happens, Grant?
Well, and you see over the credits, he's playing an electric guitar in this club, and there are credits rolling. We had some stragglers kind of make their way out as well. Luckily, Michael had texted and said, "Hey, there's a post-credit scene, by the way. That's the real ending."
Yeah,
which is like
it's not
great.
Just a post-credit scene.
No,
it's the ending of the movie.
and he's getting a drink after the show. Bar's empty, and in walk Mary and Stack, because I can never remember which one's which. Mary and Stack walk in total, 1990s hip clothing.
Yeah, it's really funny.
And you're like, oh my gosh. And this is a part where Coogler, I was like, ooh, okay. Like, I liked this.
I'm not against it.
I like this angle. I like this being in it. I like this being a continuation. And they're kind of like, they let me live, but on the account that I would like never come after you, but I can give you eternal life if you want it, because I'm a vampire and I'm obviously like, look, not a day older, neither of us. And so, do you want it? And, Sammy's like, no, I don't want it. And they say, okay. And it's just kind of like,
they kind of wax poetic about what their life has been like. And they finally got to live the life that they wanted to live, the romance that they had lived out. There's something there.
There is, yeah.
Maybe that's why Ryan Coogler is going to own the rights to this movie in 25 years, and it's a historic deal. Yeah. Maybe there's more to explore.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm conflicted because I wonder if upon deeper reflection, there's going to be more within us and within the world deciphering the meaning behind this. But I think it goes back to the vampires, their purpose, and what their offer is to our protagonists of freedom, immortality, but also escape from racism. And all these things. So like when we come to the ending and they still bring him that offering of immortality, it makes me wonder, what we're supposed to extrapolate here, because as I know Ryan Coogler is aware, the average, Catholic Church or Catholic religion and Christian religion offer to those who accept its truths immortality in the afterlife. And it's established that the afterlife is real on whatever level. So the fact that these vampires are the ones who are offering something that Christ and that Christianity offers sort of like has a similar thing of like the musicality of both good and evil, this duality of like music, duality of immortality from two different sides of the coin, is something that I wonder if maybe we're not seeing the whole picture here, or if this is yet another one of those things that was just left unexplored or unfinished.
Yeah, I mean, I think exploring like that theme of, escaping the choice that Ramek offers Sammy, right, is like through misconstrued, because I don't think it was as clear as I think it should have been to make it as powerful, is he's pretty much saying, well, if you let us get you, right, if you become one of us, you can escape the prejudice, right? Like he's talking about in Ireland when he was overtaken by oppressors, and he escaped that because of who he is. He's a vampire now, and he's timeless and eternal. So you can live forever. You don't have to be bogged down by the hate and prejudice and racism and all that. You can escape all that, right? And Sammy, I guess, chooses no, but in that final choice with his father and choosing music, he kind of still chooses what they wanted him to choose, which is like, oh, you can live forever as a musician. You can go down in history and be a renowned musician, all that stuff. And not to be Mr. rewriting the story, but you actually gave him a hard choice or something. I think it could have been more powerful, where it's like, well, why would he choose that now? He obviously had a great...
Now, I mean, the interesting wrinkle is that Smoke and Mary, when they're asked by older preacher boy, like, like that was the best night of my life before the vampires showed up. That was the best night of my life. And they said, yeah, us too. And they've lived for as long as he has. Yeah. So there is a wrinkle to it. Yeah. One thing I do like about the movie is that it's actually not very Jordan Peele-esque in that it doesn't do the A24 thing where it seems like they start with a metaphor and then tack on a story. Right. To me, it unfolded. It was an unfolding story. I think about the characters and the conflicts. So
yeah, for all its faults, they didn't try and make everything a metaphor.
Which is refreshing.
Good movie, bad movie. I think it's a good movie. I think it's something that I'm glad that it's doing well, because we need more original movies that try for something, even if in my mind they fail. But I don't know. I mean, what'd you guys think? Like,
go original screenplays. I'm a huge fan of that. So
I mean, I thought it was good. I texted my friends, disclaimer, hey, there's some, whatever, but it's worth seeing in theaters. I think it's entertaining, it's original, and it feels, there are parts that feel fresh and parts that will definitely stay with me thinking about for a while.
I guess my only caveat is that, like, I don't think I could recommend this to even like I couldn't recommend this to a Catholic, really, because especially if you're trying to avoid, like, there's just, it puts a lot on the table, and it doesn't resolve it, is the thing.
Right.
There's never, I'm okay with looking into the abyss or a little bit with a movie, but I would like to come out of it with the idea that something was even said.
Right.
I didn't even get the feeling that anything was said in this, but it was cool like music. It was kind of cool while it happened.
Yes.
Right.
So true. Yeah. And if audience members don't end up going to see the movie, at least check out the score, because the score is great.
Totally.
Like I was thinking last night, I was like, do I recommend this movie just because the score is that good? Because the music really is something I've never heard. I've heard the blues, but not this in a movie. So I highly recommend, even if you're not going to see the movie, that you check out the score. Ludwig and everyone on the music team just did a stand-up job.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cool. I mean, so sinners.
I know that you are kind. You show me everywhere you go. You talk like you the kind crying. And
Oh, hey, Pat Grant, what's up, guys? Come on over here. Oh, hey. All right.
Hey, what you guys doing there in the dark? Come on over here.
I don't mind if we do.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a couple days after our recording. What brings you here?
Well, I was so inspired by Coogler's use of the end credits scene. I thought we just had to fit one into this episode.
So you thought we would have the most important part of the discussion after the main part of the discussion?
I thought that the discussion wouldn't be complete without the actual completion of the discussion
That's
happening
great.
days later.
Yeah, of course. Actually, the truth is that we forgot to talk about the most important part of the movie if we're the Catholic Film Club.
Yeah. Hashtag
So,
not a joke.
yeah, hashtag no joke. So, but Grant, I'll let you pose the question.
Okay.
What is the big question that we're missing here?
So my big question that I even wrote down.
I might even say we're not even cutting. This is actually coming out today. So we're recording the day this is coming out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I wrote this down and forgot to bring it up.
Okay.
Why did all the vampires say the Our Father?
Okay, big thing. Can you bring us up to speed on like what's happening in the story at this point and what the event is?
So
and this is in the spoilers, but that's where we are.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So at this point, Sammy has escaped the barn. The preacher boy escaped the barn. He's out in this kind of lake in the water, and Ramek, the main vampire's got him there. He's about to turn him into a vampire pretty much. And in his moment of desperation, Sammy, preacher boy, turns to the Our Father, and he starts saying it. And then Ramek, the vampire, also starts saying it. And then all the vampires start chanting the Our Father. And it's very chilling because, especially coming from our place, I'm sure you guys, I'm like, oh, great, he's saying the Our Father. This is awesome. Like, that's, yes, like in your moment of utmost despair, this is what you're turning to. And then it was so chilling hearing them all say it. And there's more to unpack with
As if
what
there was
continues.
no effect
Yes.
on it. And
Yeah.
Ramek takes it a step further and says, this is something that I find comfort in.
Right, because Ramek, and I don't know if we've fully established this in our discussion, is at least the corpse that is moving about. I actually don't know if this literally is Ramek doing this. I kind of personally think this is the devil controlling everyone on puppet strings. But it's established throughout the movie that when you become a vampire and you're in this hive mind, your memories and your life kind of belong to this hive mind. Everyone knows everything about everybody. And so Ramek's past was that he was that he lived in Ireland at the time when it was heavily oppressed by the British. And so there's that connection brought there. This isn't the first time this is brought up in the film, that there's like this duality between the Irish plight, the plight of the Irish versus the British, and the plight of the African American or African, however it goes, slaves in America. So,
Yeah, it's interesting because the comfort part gets me, because when
can you remind me what the comfort part is?
Yeah, well, Sammy says the Our Father, Ramek continues the Our Father, the rest of the vampires continue the Our Father, and Ramek says something along the lines of,
This brought comfort to my people.
This brought comfort to my people. Yeah, something like that. And it's interesting because going back to Annie, the voodoo witch, she mentions holy water, which along with like wooden spikes and garlic, holy water kind of being the only Christianic sacramental here. But then the one thing that stuck out to me in this scene at the end is that it's in a lake, right?
Right, so you have baptism, you have fire.
He's dunking him. I don't know if he dunks him twice or 3 times, but 3 times would be a symbolic symbol for baptism. Right. Because I don't know if this goes for every single Christian religion, but in Catholicism, baptism is you pour or dunk the person to be baptized 3 times. You say in the name of the Father, pour water, Son, water, Holy Spirit. So I don't know if it's 3 times. Comment section will have to fact check us on that. But I found it interesting because the way I'm interpreting it, religion doesn't really have an effect on this. So it's like, well, what did have an effect were these superficial things like garlic and wooden stakes, but then a true religion and a true religious device of prayer and holy water doesn't affect it, which takes it a step further, which is, okay, well, being that Sammy is one of the protagonists, has this thing at the end with his father, and this whole movie we're talking about accepting, quote unquote, who he is with the music, and then accepting his father's religion. It begs the question of like, well, what is this saying and what does this mean? Which I don't know, but
yeah. I mean, you have pretty much, and Remek's saying, it's the words, they're not his prayer, but it's the words of his oppressors, right? And he's pretty much telling Sammy, your oppressors are giving you these words. It's not from you. Or your oppressors being your father, or, as the culture at the time, obviously. Which I took, thinking about it after, as similar to the temptation of Jesus from Satan, where Satan actually uses words of scripture to try to tempt Jesus and make him turn away and give him this cynical look at the world.
He twists the words of scripture.
Totally. So I saw it as kind of a twisting. I don't know how intended that is.
Yeah,
but,
I don't want to like rush too far into, therefore this is what like Ryan Coogler thinks.
No,
because
I don't think so.
When something's put in the mouth of a vampire,
Right.
Yes. Probably shouldn't take it for face value.
Yeah.
Don't trust vampires with everything they say. That's the moral of the story.
Don't trust the deceiver.
Exactly.
Don't do that. So I would say but he is putting it in play, and I think, without getting into, but like looking at it as a piece of art that is meant to be interpreted, and not as a piece where it's supposed to be like, I don't know, Ta-Nehisi Coates like writing an essay or something.
Right.
Rather than falling into the debate, I just think it is important to like break down those elements of. That's why I wanted to bring us back on for the conversation.
There's seemingly no one-to-one interpretation of the vampires mean this, and like the ending means this. There's really like before we did this, we were talking, and there's far too many questions and not enough answers, and that's okay.
It's great, perfect for a movie.
Perfect for a movie,
for a narrative,
absolutely.
for a story. You're supposed to bring out these questions, and I don't think that, which is another benefit of this not being in that classic A24 horror model, even though a lot of people have compared it to that, is that, as I said before a couple of days ago, I think it was like, this is a story that's unfolding. It's not something where there was a metaphor and then a narrative tacked onto it. It seems to start from the characters and from from their desires. So, I mean, if we like break down when we break down what the Our Father says, thy will be done, right, on earth as it is in heaven. And yet, let's break it down though. What ultimately does defeat the vampire at the end? What ultimately does defeat Remek? Do you remember, Graham? The sun.
Yeah.
So there is a rule. There is a truth.
Yeah. But then some of the vampires survive at the end too.
Because they escaped, though. Because
they did escape.
Because Stack and Mary, we find out later, kind of hightailed it out of there.
Yeah. My question is like twofold. It's first, the first ending, not the post-credit scene, but the scene in the church with Sammy and his father. We see Sammy leaves the church, turns his back on his father, embraces the music, embraces his life. The way I see it is we're meant to see that as a happy ending, but is that a happy ending? And secondly, when we get to the post-credit scene, we see that Sammy is clearly happy with his choice he made, and we see the vampires walk in, Stack, right? Stack? Yes. Stack and Mary walk in, and there's almost this, it's almost played out as if the reunion of two old friends, three old friends. And they reminisce on the moments and the actions that take place in Sinners. It's like, what a good time. That was the best day of my life before the vampires happened and everything. and then they leave without, not before offering him immortality. But it's like, it begs the question of, like, who wins and who loses, and does anyone win and does anyone lose? Or like, is that even?
I mean, like, I think Pat brought up, a good point is that, well, actually I'll go back to thinking about story first, because the thing lately has been, you have metaphor, and when you start at metaphor, then usually that's a little more airtight, and then the story fills in, but maybe the story isn't as strong. Where here, I think when you start story, it's refreshing. It feels a little different from a lot of other, like the A24 stuff coming out. But you have a good story, because I think the story was fun until, you get to some of the ending was rushed, right? And it comes out this way, I think you do have a lot of loose ends. And that's what this podcast has seemed to like figure out, is like, oh, well, wait, this didn't get resolved. There's a lot of questions left, right? Yeah.
And so I think there will still be more to unpack about the Our Father in the future. And what I hope is that, I do hope that this becomes part of the Oscar conversation later on, and then we can watch it again maybe and like really unpack more about it. But what you're bringing up, Grant, is that this is an imperfect thing. And in the past couple of days since we recorded our episode, I've seen a lot more film commentary. I think really rooting for Sinners and for this original movie to be successful. There's been that Deadline piece that came out, which was like, oh, Sinners is going to fail at the box office. And then Ben Stiller and a lot of other celebrities came back and were like, why are you talking about this? Why are you talking about box office? This is like an original movie. Like, why is this the most important thing? I think what's being falsely brought into that conversation is, why point out any flaws that this movie has in its story whatsoever? But I just wonder, like, to you guys, what is important? Like, because a lot of people are arguing, oh, this is like an ecstatic experience at the movies. Who cares if it's imperfect? Is that, do you think that's a valid?
It is. I'm reminded of Tenet, where a lot of people were like, oh, Tenet has so many flaws. But then myself at the time and other people were like, yeah, but like, the theatrical experience is so cool, and like seeing this in the theater, seeing this on the big screen is something that maybe it's an imperfect film, and it is, but like the experience is so cool. So I think we're seeing the pendulum swing on like, oh, well, this is the original story, and then people are like, yeah, well, the experience is there too, but then like, throwing aside the flaws, I think we're seeing the reverse, where we're like not acknowledging the flaws versus acknowledging the flaws with Tenet.
Yeah. I mean, I think taking it as, I thought it's a good theater experience, but thinking, we've been brainstorming like, oh man, what if this happened at the end? What if this happened? And it's the thing that we're picturing. I would have come out of that movie miles ahead in how I thought of it, just if there's like a few things that were on the table that he had there to play with, but it seemed like he just kind of stayed,
I think that could be part of the Marvel, a little bit of the Marvel mentality, maybe even like the franchise mentality from Creed as well, is that you're so used to, and I don't want to psychoanalyze, I'm talking about like, just as a point of comparison, like I don't know what Ryan Coogler's thought process was putting this together, but what I'm going to say is that I think we're so used to TV and the continuing story, and Marvel was really, I think TV played out on the big screen because it was always like, this is connected here, it'll pay off later. So I don't think, one thing that we should as audience members want from an original movie is for it to be intact. So Silence of the Lambs, genre movie, super fun, but also thought-provoking, intact. It is one thing, and it is not teasing other things to come in the future. It is something that, lives on its own. Like, I love The Godfather Part 2, but The Godfather Part 1, it did and could live on its own for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But it's part of a franchise, but it is one
so
thing.
True. Even if you want to go into the Marvel thing, there are Marvel movies that set up a whole lot of things that are unresolved at the end of the movie, but still can stand alone. And I'm thinking Captain America: Winter Soldier. I love that movie. I think it's one of the best Marvel movies. A lot of unanswered questions, but it can still stand on its own.
I felt the same thing about Captain America, the first Avenger, the first
Avenger,
one, which is my favorite. I love that movie, and I think it functions on its own. I can watch that and not be like, they're so different, even, which was kind of cool about them. So that's all I want. I want something that is of a piece. And I don't want something that, I'm not asking for all the questions to be answered, but I do want the table to be set. And I do feel like when we're trying to have these conversations about what is the meaning of the Our Father at that time, what is the meaning of this, what is the meaning of that, I don't think it's about speed. I think it's about it's just thrown out the window. It's haphazard at the end. I don't know. Do you understand
I think
what
it's
I mean?
to your table analogy. I think the table hasn't, the food isn't out on the table, it's still in the kitchen.
He's still making it. We're watching
He's still making it. And that to me is a sign of either they're going to make a sequel, either he plans to make a sequel and get more into this, which, conversation for another time, or he's kind of iffy, doesn't really care if he makes a sequel, and then we're left with what we have here, which is trying to make sense of what I see as a mess. I always love it. I don't like when all the questions are answered and things are wrapped up in neat little bows. I think especially for a movie like this, that'd be bad. But at least I want certain things to be intact to where we can break things down and we can be guided by the filmmaker to have the debate, to have the conversation. But if we don't have a direction from the director, then we're lost.
Especially when a debate is set up.
Exactly.
I think
the intentionality, clear intentionality with a lot of things of cultural themes, social themes, genre themes, but they're strewn all over the place.
Yeah. Okay, so have you guys changed your minds about Sinners?
No.
It's only been a couple days,
No,
but I do hope the best for it because we need more movies like this.
Absolutely.
What was I gonna say? I had one final thought. I don't know, just to keep randomly. So me and Tom Hoops are going to talk about Rome Open City, among other movies, and not to compare apples next week because it's Pope Francis's one of his favorite movies, and not to compare apples to oranges, but that's a movie that takes place in the Nazi occupation of Rome, and it does make clear moral statements in the worst possible scenario. And so you can do this. I just don't see why that's you can do this and be powerful and not be didactic in a way. You can, I don't know, it's possible. I'll just say it's possible. So, okay. So I think best thing for me to do is just now go back to the past and we'll go back to our wrap up and I'll let past Michael set up the rest of the episode because we got to get this out. Okay. Sinners. Do you guys want to go? You guys should probably go back to wherever you...
Yeah, we should. We should go.
We'll go.
We'll be around.
Enjoy the coffee.
Thank you.
Garlic!
You look like you a dream maker.
Well, let's do the readings. I think this is a cool segment to do for the. So what we're gonna do every week from now on is we're gonna look ahead to the Sunday readings and think a movie that matches it. So this episode's coming out on the week of the 29th or the 28th. So we're looking ahead to the third Sunday of Easter. Grant, and we're just throw out a movie that has to do with something of the daily reading. Yeah.
So I'll give a quick summary of the reading that I picked. It's the first reading on that Sunday.
Okay.
And it's from Acts of the Apostles, and pretty much it's after Pentecost. The apostles are given their mission. They're out preaching the truth in Jesus' name, right? Salvation. And the Sanhedrin, the leaders of the Jews, are like, "Oh, I thought we squashed this with Jesus," right? So they're they bring him back before the council and the Jewish leaders and saying hey, you guys got to stop this. Don't preach about Jesus anymore. Stop talking about him. And the apostles, led by Peter, are pretty much no, this is you kind of killed our Savior, and now no, we're not going to stop. And they leave, and it says that they leave feeling they kind of are pretty much what it's saying is like they're pumped up because like, oh, we're getting persecuted for this. This is like just like Jesus. Like, yes, like they're like, this is right and just, and we're doing the right thing. So my movie to go along with those themes is The Untouchables, directed by Brian De Palma.
Oh.
Okay, because they have a mission that they know is right. They're told by their leaders, they're told by, they're threatened with their lives to not do this. It's not going to be worth it. You're all going to die. But they still go after it, okay? No matter they have the members of the team die, all this stuff happens.
I'm thinking of Mission Impossible over here.
I thought you were going to go of Gods and Men, but no.
No, Untouchables, man. They're after
it.
it. They got to accomplish this mission, even though it's threatening them, and they've been threatened not to. So
I love that.
What
I love The Untouchables.
It's a great movie.
Probably the moviest movie that ever movied.
Costner, Connery, De Niro,
Brian De Palma. Throwing that camera around. Oh, that's great. And you haven't seen it still,
you got
have
the
you?
stroller.
You're a Chicago man, and you haven't seen The Untouchables.
I haven't seen every Chicago movie. My reading, I went with the guy, breeze past in the Chicago part. I picked the gospel, and it's the passage where Jesus has risen from the dead and is about to reveal himself to the apostles again. The Simon Peter and a few others are out fishing. They don't catch anything throughout the night. They come to shore. They see Jesus on the shore. He invites them to have breakfast, and it's kind of that, reinforcement, recreation of the breaking of the bread, and that's they come to believe and see that he is Jesus. He's resurrected. It took me a little bit of time, actually. It was more difficult than I thought. Same. I went with The Tree of Life, and I know that's like such a typical film bro-y movie to throw around for anything, but
Catholic film bro, no less.
Especially. Yeah. So the seaside location parallel is one that when you watch Tree of Life, especially near the ending, there's something really like baked into the cake of that scene where the location really dictates emotion. And kind of like an afterlife of some kind, which I feel like, Jesus fulfilling his resurrection on a seashore is, tells me something there. But then also both Tree of Life and this passage grapple with like reconciliation and how to proceed after death or despair, and there's like the catharsis that happens with this in Tree of Life. There's that scene at the end of all the people meeting, and it's kind of suggested it's the afterlife of some kind or a limbo state, and
everyone's meeting each other.
So like the search for something and like not discovering it and then finding it again in like the one true thing or person is something that I was like, I'm going Tree of Life. Nice.
Honestly, I'd never really put that together with the beach imagery before, but that does kind of bring home. I do want to watch it when I rewatch it at some point, which we should just do it on the film club feature at some point. But I'll keep an eye out for that because I've never have put that together. So I went with Revelations, the readings from Revelation chapter 5, 11 through 14. And I'm going to have to read directly from this because it's like Revelation. It's a poem. Yeah. And so this is the part where the voices, I, John, looked and heard the voices of many angels who surrounded the throne. And the living creatures and the elders, they were countless in number, and they cried out in a loud voice, "Worthy is the Lamb that was slain, to receive power and riches, wisdom and strength, honor and glory and blessing." Then I heard every creature in heaven and on earth and under the earth and in the sea, everything in the universe, cry out to the one who sits on the throne and to the Lamb, be blessing and honor, glory and might forever and ever. The 4 living creatures answered, "Amen," and the elders fell down and worshipped. So Revelation is a bit too much to chew, to say, but I went for something that actually may not be very surprising. I went with another apocalyptic tale, Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. Have you guys seen The Birds?
I have.
It's very unusual.
Great one.
And I saw it early on because it's very unusual actually in the Hitchcock filmography, because most of his movies are just about people and espionage and double dealings and things like that. There's never anything supernatural happening, even in Psycho, which is his most genre movie. But this is about a town that is set upon by masses of violent birds. And I think part of it was because of my conversation a couple weeks ago about Pinocchio with John Byer, and he brought to mind like what the seraphim actually are, which are actually like multi-winged creatures. I did not realize this. And when I think of the imagery of the birds, I think of, you know, could the birds be representing like the angels of the apocalypse and all those wings together?
Totally.
Like when you see all those wings together, does that like conjure up in the mind the image of the seraphim and the cherubim?
Yeah.
I love that.
That's awesome.
And it, I think it's definitely something to check out. It still works. And talk about soundtracks. There is no soundtrack. There's no score.
Okay.
But Bernard Herrmann.
Sorry, Ludwig.
But the famous Bernard Herrmann did. He was basically the sound designer on the film and used the sounds of birds as the score. And it's really eerie and haunting. Cool. So it opens the movie and it's throughout and it closes the movie.
A great
So
movie.
I think Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds would be an interesting pairing with this
I love
reading
that.
this weekend.
I love it.
So guys, this is awesome.
This is
Patrick,
fantastic.
Good.
this is your last episode.
Bon voyage to me.
You're going back to Chicago.
back to Chicago with this
Yeah, go
Stack
ahead.
brothers.
With the Smokestack.
yeah, with Smoketstack.
Yeah, say hi to them for us.
I
But you're gonna
will.
be with Spirit Juice. That's
Yep,
great.
Gonna be working for them in the creative directing department. You know, making things and
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've been in here since the inception. I've loved having you here this whole time. And man, like, welcome back on the show anytime.
I'll be back.
Especially
I'll
as
be
like
back.
we'll be interviewing you. Your angel
Yeah.
your angel torch film will be
Yeah. I will say thank you to both of you guys, to producer Jared behind the screens, and to Benedictine, the Catholic Film Club. And it's really been great to, you know, be able to do a deep dive into movies, because as movie lovers, a lot of times we watch so many movies, and that's great, but doing this thing and being able to reflect and ask myself what I think about the movie and just explore my own understanding or misunderstanding of movies on just an individual level of like movie by movie is something that has really benefited me personally. So all thanks to you guys, to Catholic Film Club and BC, and I'll say thank you, but not goodbye, because I'll be back.
Yeah.
Nice.
God bless, man. We've loved having you here.
Yeah, thank you guys.
I'll just and thanks, Grant, for joining us for the
Welcome,
first time.
Grant.
You'll be
Welcome.
back many
Yeah.
times.
Let's go.
But I'll say to this camera, this is the Catholic Film Club. I'm Michael Coy, and you can follow the movies that we're covering on our social and reach out to us at filmclub@benedictine.edu. We do a film club feature every month, and this week this month it's going to be Hail Caesar, the Coen Brothers movie. And we're going to have Brother Maximilian Anderson on for that. So that's going to be fun. And I think soon I'm going to be talking with Tom Hoops about Pope Francis's favorite movies.
Mm-hmm. Love that.
Again, pray for the Holy Father and the repose of his soul, and
Absolutely.
that we get, and for the new Pope who is on the horizon. All right. God bless everyone. Thank you very much.